The cargo ship descended slowly toward Kepler Station, its metal hull reflecting the bright light of 3 distant suns. Inside the Galactic Academic Institute, Dr. Teo waited nervously in the receiving room. His 3 large eyes blinked in sequence as he watched the delivery workers carry in a single sealed container. The box was old, made from material that had not been used for hundreds of years. His translucent skin rippled with excitement and curiosity. "This is it?" one of the workers asked, pointing at the box with a curved metal hand. "Yes," Dr. Teo replied. His voice sounded like wind moving through hollow tubes. "Bring it to Lab 7. No one else should touch it until I have examined it fully." The workers did as they were told. Within an hour, Dr. Teo stood alone in the lab with the container. He had been studying human history for 15 years, and he had never seen anything like this before. The container had arrived from Earth's old storage vaults, the places where humans kept their most important items preserved from ancient times. According to the records, this box contained something that every alien civilization in the galaxy considered to be only a myth, a story that could not be true. Dr. Teo opened the container slowly, carefully. Inside, wrapped in protective cloth, was a uniform. It was not just any uniform. It was a military dress uniform from the 21st century, from Earth's United States Marine Corps. The fabric was deep, blue-black, perfect, and without any damage despite its age. On the chest were rows of colored medals and ribbons. The insignia on the shoulders showed rank and achievement. There was a white belt, white gloves, and a tall hat called a cover. For several minutes, Dr. Teo simply looked at it. His 3 eyes examined every detail. In all the galaxy, no other species had ever created something like this. The Veliths, with their advanced crystal technology, did not have formal uniforms. The Koraths, who traveled through space in massive ships, did not believe in individual clothing and identity markers. The Pneumoids, beings made of gas and energy, could not even wear physical objects. But humans had made this. Humans, a species that most galactic civilizations considered to be young and simple, had created something with deep meaning and purpose. Every button was designed to hold something in place. Every stripe and medal told a story of achievement and honor. The uniform was not just clothing. It was a statement. It was a promise. It was a piece of human identity given physical form. Dr. Teo touched the sleeve of the uniform very gently. He had read all the human books he could find. He understood that humans used clothing for more than protection from cold or heat. They used clothing to show their place in society, their profession, their achievements. This uniform was the most extreme example of that practice. He heard footsteps. Someone was walking down the corridor toward the lab. Dr. Teo straightened his posture. His translucent skin became slightly less clear, a sign that he was feeling nervous or uncertain. The door to the lab opened, and Hyun-A walked in. Hyun-A was human, but she did not look like the humans on Earth anymore. She had lived in space for most of her adult life. Her body had adapted to lower gravity. Her skin had a slight glow from the station's artificial lights. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight style. She wore a simple gray uniform that marked her as a researcher for the institute. "Dr. Teo," she said, "you requested my presence?" "Yes, Hyun-A. I want to show you something. I think you will find it very interesting." He turned to the display table, where the uniform was laid out. Hyun-A walked closer. Her eyes grew larger. Her hands began to shake very slightly. She stared at the uniform for almost a full minute without speaking. When she finally did speak, her voice was quiet. That is a dress uniform. From Earth. From before the Great Departure. The Great Departure was the time when the first humans had left Earth to travel among the stars. "Yes," Dr. Teo said. "This is a Marine Corps dress uniform. It has been preserved in perfect condition for 350 years. The records indicate that it belonged to a human female, a captain in the military." "Why show this to me?" Hyune asked. But she already knew the answer. There were very few humans in the Galactic Academic Institute. Most humans preferred to stay on Earth or live in human colonies. Hyune was rare. She had spent her whole career working among aliens, studying their cultures, their technologies, their ways of thinking. Because I need your help, Dr. Tae-o said. I want to understand what this uniform means. Not just as an object, but as something with meaning to humans. I want to understand the psychology of it. And I need a human to help me do this. Hyune moved slowly around the display table. She studied the uniform from every angle. She saw the weight of the fabric. She saw how the buttons were placed. She saw the careful positioning of every medal, every stripe, every mark of rank and achievement. Try it on, Dr. Tae-o said. What? Hyune looked up at him with surprise. Try it on, he repeated. We have recording equipment that can measure your physical response. We have neural scanners that can track your brain activity. If you wear it, we can understand its effect on you. We can understand what it was meant to do. Hyune hesitated. She had spent so long away from human culture. She had tried very hard to fit in with the alien researchers. She did not want to stand out. She did not want to be seen as too human, too strange, too different. But the uniform called to her. She could feel it. Something inside her wanted to put it on. Something deep in her human heart wanted to experience what her ancestors had experienced when they wore such uniforms. All right, she said finally. I will try it on. Dr. Tae-o helped her with the uniform. He showed her how the buttons worked, how the belt was supposed to fit, where the medals and insignia should be placed. Hyune changed in a private room, then emerged wearing the full dress uniform. When she walked back into the lab, something was different. She stood taller. Her shoulders were straighter. Her chin was held higher. She moved with a confidence that had not been there before. Dr. Tae-o's 3 eyes grew very wide. Hyune walked to a mirror on the wall and looked at herself. For the first time in many years, she saw the face of someone who belonged to something greater than herself. She saw the face of someone with duty, with purpose, with strength. She reached up and adjusted her collar carefully. The uniform was snug, fitted perfectly to her body, as if it had been made for her alone. She said quietly, almost in wonder. Feels snug after all these years. But it fits perfectly. The moment she spoke those words, every scanner in the lab began to go wild. Numbers and patterns appeared on Dr. Tae-o's screens. Her neural activity was changing. Her confidence markers were rising. Her decision-making processes were becoming faster and more organized. The uniform was doing something. Something real. Something powerful. News of the discovery spread through Kepler Station like a wave. Within 2 days, representatives from a dozen alien species had arrived to examine the uniform and study Hyune. The laboratory had been transformed into a place of constant activity and excitement. Scientists came and went. Equipment was brought in and set up. Hyune found herself at the center of attention, which made her deeply uncomfortable. A team of Veliths arrived first. They were beautiful beings made entirely of crystalline material that shimmered and reflected light in impossible ways. Their bodies were geometric and perfect, with no unnecessary parts. When they communicated, they did so through harmonic vibrations that made the air around them shimmer. They placed sensitive equipment all around Hyune, measuring every possible biological response to the uniform. Fascinating, one of the Veliths said, their voice like singing glass. The garment appears to trigger biochemical responses in the human nervous system. Cortisol levels decrease. Confidence neurotransmitters increase. There is a cascade of positive neurological effects. Then came the Koraths, whose ship occupied an entire section of the station's docking bay. The Koraths were hive creatures, joined together in one collective mind. They did not think as individuals but as a single organism spread across many bodies. When they examined the uniform, they moved in perfect synchronization. each action matching the others exactly. They spoke in unison, many voices speaking identical words at the same moment. "We understand now," they said together. "This is not merely clothing. This is a system of organization. This is a hierarchy made visible. This is how humans create order from chaos." A single pneumoid came next. A being of pure gas and energy that moved through the station's corridors like a floating cloud. It had no solid form, no fixed shape. It observed Hyun-A from a distance, unable to touch the uniform, but able to analyze it through sophisticated energy scanners it had brought with it. "The structure of this garment," the pneumoid said in a voice like wind, "is designed to affect the physical structure of the being who wears it. It changes posture, alters breathing patterns, modifies the way the body moves through space. This physical change then cascades into psychological changes. Your species understood something that we did not. 8. We can again." Dr. Teo worked constantly, making sure that every measurement was taken, every observation was recorded. He had been proven correct. The uniform was not just an object, it was technology, of a sort. It was a system designed to enhance human performance and confidence. But as more data came in, more questions appeared. Then Jin-Woo arrived at the lab. He was a human researcher who had lived on Kepler Station for 10 years. He had worked hard to become accepted among the alien scientists. He dressed in neutral station clothing. He spoke in careful, measured tones. He had learned to hide his human emotions and reactions. When he saw Hyun-A standing there in the full dress uniform, his face went pale. "Take it off," he said immediately. "What?" Hyun-A looked at him with confusion. "Take off the uniform, right now. This is a mistake, a serious mistake." Jin-Woo turned to Dr. Teo. "This research needs to be stopped immediately. Do you understand what you are doing?" "Teo." Dr. Teo's translucent skin rippled with confusion. "We are conducting scientific research. We are learning about human artifacts and their psychological effects. This is valuable knowledge for all species." "No, you do not understand," Jin-Woo said urgently. His voice was shaking. "You are revealing human capabilities. You are showing the galaxy that humans are more advanced than anyone thought. And that is dangerous. That is very dangerous." Hyun-A stepped down from the observation platform. "Jin-Woo, what are you talking about?" "Not Dom. Humans are classified as Tier 5 civilization," Jin-Woo said quickly. "We are ranked near the bottom of the galactic hierarchy. We are given limited resources, limited rights, limited access to advanced technology. That is not an accident. That is by design. Other civilizations prefer humans to be weak and simple." The Veliths and Koraths exchanged looks. The pneumoid drifted slightly backward. The truth of Jin-Woo's words hung in the air of the laboratory. "If the galaxy discovers that humans have hidden technological knowledge," Jin-Woo continued, "if they discover that humans created devices that can enhance cognitive function through biological technological integration, then humans will no longer be acceptable as a simple, manageable species. We will become a threat." "But that is not fair," Dr. Teo said. "If humans possess this knowledge, should it not be shared? Should not all species benefit from it?" "Fair has nothing to do with it," Jin-Woo replied. "Galactic politics is not about fairness. It is about power. The species that are currently in power will not want to see human power increase, and they will act to prevent it." Despite Jin-Woo's warnings, Hyun-A refused to remove the uniform. She did something that surprised everyone in the room. She stepped forward, looked directly at Jin-Woo, and smiled. "I am not going to hide anymore," she said. Her voice was steady and strong. "I am going to volunteer for more testing. I want to understand this uniform completely. I want to know what it means and why it works. And I do not care if that makes other species uncomfortable." The Koraths began to vibrate with what sounded like excitement. The Velith's crystalline bodies brightened. Even the pneumoids seemed to shift in a way that suggested approval. "Then we will continue, Doctor," Teo said. "We will scan the uniform with more advanced equipment. We will analyze its chemical composition. We will decode the mathematics of its design." Droktu. Clicks of 74. Teo. "We will decode the mathematics of its design." They worked all through the night. Hyone stood in the center of the laboratory, while machines and scanners surrounded her. The uniform remained snug against her body, fitting her perfectly, as if it had always been meant for her to wear. And with each passing hour, each new measurement, each new discovery, Hyone felt something changing inside her. She was not just wearing a uniform anymore. She was beginning to understand something that humans had always known, but had never fully explained. When you dressed for a purpose, when you put on the clothing of achievement and responsibility, you began to become that person. You began to embody the qualities that the uniform represented. The uniform was not controlling her. Instead, it was awakening something that had always been inside her. It was awakening her true human nature. By the end of the night, Dr. Teo had filled 17 data storage units with information about the uniform. Every alien species on the station was talking about what they had learned. The discovery could not be kept secret anymore. In a matter of hours, the news would reach the Galactic Council, and nothing would ever be the same again. The historical archives of Earth were buried deep beneath kilometers of rock and reinforced material. They had been sealed away since the Great Departure, protected from the chaos and instability of early space travel. Dr. Teo had never seen these archives himself, but he had access to all the data stored within them. He spent 3 days reading through files, decrypting old data formats, and slowly revealing secrets that humanity had kept hidden for centuries. Min Su, a young human graduate student who worked in the archives, helped him search through the encrypted military records. Min Su had dark hair and bright eyes that showed his endless curiosity. He had grown up hearing stories about the old Earth, about humans who had been warriors and explorers. Most of all, he wanted to understand his own history. "Here," Min Su said, his voice excited. He pointed to a file that had just been decrypted. "This is marked Project Aurora. It looks like a classified military program." Dr. Teo leaned closer, his 3 eyes reading the old text. What he found was astonishing. The file described a program that had begun in the 21st century. Human militaries from different nations, despite political tensions, had secretly worked together. Their goal was to create uniforms that were far more than simple clothing. These uniforms were engineered to affect the human body and mind. The documents explained the science in simple language. The uniforms were woven with special fibers that had been treated with compounds derived from rare earth minerals. These minerals had electromagnetic properties. When worn against human skin, they created subtle bioelectric feedback loops. This feedback loop would activate specific parts of the human brain that controlled confidence, focus, and decision-making speed. "This is incredible," Min Su whispered. "Humans figured this out centuries ago, but no one ever told the rest of the galaxy." "No one in the rest of the galaxy knew," Dr. Teo replied. "And after the Great Departure, when human civilization spread across space, this knowledge was gradually lost. Humans stopped making these uniforms. They forgot what their ancestors had created." They continued reading. The files contained technical specifications, psychological studies, and performance data. Soldiers who wore the uniforms showed improved tactical awareness. They made faster decisions. They had higher confidence levels during combat. The uniforms were effective, but the program had eventually been abandoned for ethical and political reasons. The files did not explain exactly why, but hints suggested that governments had become nervous about the technology. If uniforms could be used to enhance military performance, what other applications might they have? Could they be used to control people? Could they be weaponized? The technology had been abandoned, but thousands of these uniforms had already been manufactured. Most were destroyed, but some were kept in storage, preserved by a few individuals who believed that someday, future generations might want to understand what their ancestors had created. The uniform that we found, Dr. Teo said slowly, was one of these experimental uniforms. It was from the last batch produced before the program ended, and it had been perfectly preserved. Minsu sat down heavily in a nearby chair. Do you understand what this means? Humans were not just making weapons. They were studying the connection between clothing, psychology, and performance. They were doing research that is far ahead of what we thought humans were capable of. Dr. Teo nodded. His translucent skin had turned a slight shade of purple, which indicated deep thought and concentration. Humans did not use advanced technology to create these uniforms. They used science and careful engineering. They understood biology and psychology in ways that made this possible. This was pure human creativity and innovation. They discovered more files. Some described ceremonial clothing from ancient human cultures. Samurai in Japan had worn armor that was designed to make them feel invincible. Knights in Europe had worn full-plate armor that transformed their body image completely. Warriors in many different human cultures had understood, on an instinctive level, that clothing could affect behavior and mental state. They knew, Minsu said with wonder. Thousands of years before science could prove it, humans knew that what you wear shapes who you are. Dr. Teo began to compile all of this information into a report. He had to present it carefully to the Galactic Council. The truth about human capability and human innovation could not be hidden anymore, but it needed to be explained in a way that the Council would understand. When the report was complete, Dr. Teo organized a presentation. He showed the scientific data. He explained the connection between the ancient human practices of ceremonial clothing and the modern engineering of the uniforms. He presented evidence that humans had discovered a universal principle that other species had missed. The presentation was attended by representatives from many different civilizations. Some were impressed. Some were skeptical. Some were clearly troubled by what they were hearing. The Veliths asked detailed questions about the mineral composition. The Koraths wanted to understand how the uniforms affected individual humans within their collective consciousness framework. The Pneumoids seemed fascinated by the relationship between physical structure and psychological state. But there were also warnings. A representative from the Vraxian Empire, a species known for their military dominance and their desire to control lesser civilizations, made a statement. This research is dangerous, the Vraxian said. His voice was deep and threatening. This information suggests that humans are more capable than we have believed. This could destabilize the current political and social order of the galaxy. The research must be stopped. And this uniform must be destroyed. Dr. Teo disagreed strongly. We cannot stop research because it might be inconvenient to existing power structures. The truth is the truth. Humans created something remarkable. We should acknowledge this and celebrate it, but the seed of trouble had been planted. Not all species agreed with the Vraxian, but many agreed that humans needed to remain in their current position in the galactic hierarchy. If humans were recognized as truly innovative and capable, then humans might demand better treatment, more resources, more rights. And many of the more powerful species did not want that to happen. Hyone felt the pressure mounting. She knew that her decision to keep wearing the uniform and to continue the research was creating enemies. But she also knew that she could not stop now. She had discovered something about herself and about her species. She had discovered that humans were capable of so much more than anyone believed. She adjusted the collar of the uniform and stood taller. She had started something that could not be reversed. The truth about human capability was out in the open. Now she would have to fight to make sure that truth was accepted by the galaxy as a whole. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, built to accommodate representatives from dozens of different species. The walls were made of transparent metal that showed the stars beyond. The floor reflected light from carefully positioned illumination systems that worked with the biology of every species. Hyun-ae stood in the center of the chamber, still wearing the dress uniform. This was the most important moment of her life, though she did not know it yet. Around the chamber sat the leaders of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. The Vraxians dominated one section, their large bodies covered in hard, chitinous armor. The Thylosians held another section, their elegant bodies glowing with soft bioluminescence. Representatives from dozens of other worlds occupied the remaining spaces. Every leader, every representative, every observer in the chamber was watching Hyun-ae with intense interest. The head of the council, an ancient Xylothian named Krell-Vor, opened his many mouths to speak. His voice was amplified throughout the chamber. We have gathered to decide the fate of the research into what humans call Project Aurora. We have reviewed the scientific data. We have examined the claims made by Dr. Tae-o. We must now determine whether this research should continue or be terminated immediately. Krell-Vor paused. And we must determine the future status of humanity within the galactic community. Representatives began to speak, one after another. Some were supportive of the research. The Veliths explained that the science was valid and important. The Koraths suggested that understanding human innovation could benefit all species. But others were opposed, and their objections were harsh. A Vraxian military leader named Thrak stood and spoke with absolute certainty. Humans cannot be trusted with advanced knowledge. We have kept humanity at Tier 5 status for good reason. Humans are aggressive, unpredictable, and dangerous. If we allow them to develop and share this technology, they will become a threat to galactic stability. Hyun-ae felt anger rise inside her, but she controlled it. This was what Jin-woo had warned her about. This was the fear that drove other species to keep humans weak. Another Vraxian stood. I propose that all research be immediately ceased. I propose that the uniform be destroyed. I propose that all human knowledge of this technology be purged from the archives. If humans become too capable, they will upset the balance of power that we have so carefully maintained. Jin-woo, sitting in a small section reserved for human observers, put his face in his hands. This was happening. The thing he had feared most. And there was nothing he could do to stop it. But then, Hyun-ae stepped forward. The uniform made a soft sound as she moved, the fabric moving against her skin. She raised her hand and asked to speak. Krell-Vor, perhaps out of curiosity or perhaps out of a sense of fairness, granted her permission. I stand before you wearing this uniform, Hyun-ae said, her voice steady and clear. And I want to tell you something that you need to understand. This uniform is not a weapon. It is not a tool of conquest. It is a symbol of human understanding about what it means to have purpose and responsibility. The chamber became very quiet. Everyone listened. Humans have existed for hundreds of thousands of years, Hyun-ae continued. For most of that time, we had no advanced technology. We had no ships that could travel between stars. We had no machines that could measure the universe. But we had something else. We had the understanding that what we wear, how we present ourselves, what we choose to represent all shape who we become. She walked slowly across the chamber. The dress uniform, catching the light. Every eye followed her. Samurai warriors in ancient Japan wore specific armor, not just for protection, but to become the person that armor represented. Knights in medieval Europe wore formal clothing to embrace codes of honor and duty. Warriors across human history understood that identity and appearance are connected. When you dress for a purpose, you become capable of achieving that purpose. Hyun-ae stopped in the center of the chamber and faced Krell-Vor directly. The uniform I am wearing was created by humans centuries ago. It was created using science and careful engineering, yes, but more than that. It was created using human wisdom, about the connection between body, mind, and spirit. Humans understood something that your species are only now beginning to discover. And what is that? Asked a Thylosian representative, her voice full of genuine curiosity. That we do not have to be afraid of potential, Hyune answered. The Vraxians believe that humans must be kept weak to maintain stability, but I say that the galaxy is large enough, vast enough, infinite enough, for all species to be strong. We do not become weaker when others become stronger. We all become stronger together. Thrak the Vraxian stood again, his body seeming to grow even larger. This is sentiment, not logic. This is emotion, not reason. Humans cannot be trusted with power. They have proven throughout their history that they will use power to dominate others. Humans have made mistakes, Hyune agreed. Yes. We have fought wars among ourselves. We have treated other humans poorly. But we have also created beauty. We have created art and music and stories. We have discovered science and mathematics. We have reached toward the stars. And we have done this not out of a desire to dominate, but out of a desire to understand and to grow. She raised her hand and adjusted the collar of the uniform. The simple gesture seemed to carry enormous weight in the chamber. I did not ask for this uniform. It came to me as a discovery, as a gift from my own people's past. And when I put it on, something inside me awakened. I felt connected to thousands of years of human history. I felt the weight of human achievement and human struggle, and I felt the desire to be better, to do better, to contribute something meaningful to the universe. The chamber remained silent. Then, Dr. Teo stood up in his section. I support Hyune's words, he said. I have studied human history for many years. Humans are not a threat to be controlled. Humans are a resource to be valued. Humans are partners to be respected. The science proves this. The history proves this. The Thylosian delegate stood as well. I move that this research be allowed to continue. I move that humanity be reclassified to Tier 3 status. I move that humans be granted full participation in the Galactic Council. Immediately, Thrak objected. This is madness. This will lead to chaos and the collapse of our civilization. I think not. The Thylosian replied. I think it will lead to growth. I think it will lead to partnership. I think it will lead to a better galaxy for all of us. The debate continued for hours, but Hyune's words had changed something in the chamber. She had not convinced everyone. The Vraxians remained opposed. Many species that benefited from human weakness remained opposed, but others, particularly the younger delegates, and those who valued innovation and progress, began to support the research and the elevation of humanity's status. By the end of the session, a vote was called. The research would be allowed to continue. Humanity would be given provisional elevation to Tier 3 status, pending further evidence of cooperation and good intentions. It was not a complete victory, but it was a beginning. As Hyun-A left the chamber, she felt the weight of the uniform against her body. She had done something extraordinary. She had used words and truth and confidence to change the minds of powerful beings from across the galaxy. She had stood alone against those who wanted to keep humans weak and had refused to back down. Jinwoo found her in the corridor outside the chamber. His eyes were wet with tears. You did it, he said simply. You actually did it. We did it, Hyun-A corrected him. We, humans, we. The changes began slowly, but they accelerated quickly. In the weeks following the Galactic Council vote, teams of researchers from multiple species worked together to apply the principles they had learned from the human uniform to other civilizations. The discovery that humans had made was not unique to humans. It was universal. Every species, in different ways, had the ability to encode meaning and power into physical objects and garments. The Veliths created crystalline vestments that enhanced their harmonic abilities. When a Velith wore one of these vestments, their body would resonate with greater clarity and power. Their voices could reach frequencies that had never been possible before. Their consciousness could expand beyond normal boundaries. The vestments worked through the same principles that humans had discovered in their ancient military uniforms. Physical form, altered psychology. Psychology, altered capability. The Koraths developed collective garments, clothing woven together in a way that would link multiple individuals within their hive consciousness. When Koraths wore these garments, they could coordinate their actions with even greater precision. Their collective intelligence became sharper and more focused. The technology was based entirely on human research, adapted for a species that thought in fundamentally different ways than humans did. Even the pneumoids, beings made entirely of energy and gas, found applications for the principles. They created energy containment fields that mimicked the properties of the human uniforms. These fields, when properly calibrated, could enhance the cognitive functions of any pneumoid who worked within them. A pneumoid in one of these fields could perform complex mathematical calculations at speeds previously impossible for their species. Dr. Teo supervised much of this research, but he made sure that credit was given to the humans who had made the discoveries. He ensured that Hyun-A's name appeared on all the major papers that came out of the research project. He pushed for human scientists to be invited to join the research teams, and he continuously worked to improve the status and position of humans within the galactic community. Min-Soo became the leading human researcher on the project. His work with the archives had given him unique insights into how the old human technologies had been designed. He spent long hours explaining ancient human thinking to alien scientists. He showed them how humans had always understood, on an instinctive level, that appearance and identity were connected. He connected the dots between ancient ceremonial warrior dress and 21st century military uniforms. Your species have always known this too, Min-Soo explained to a group of Thylosian researchers. Your bioluminescence changes based on your emotions and your intentions. You use light and color to communicate your inner state to others. Humans do the same thing, but with clothing instead of light. The principle is identical. We just expressed it differently. 3 months after the Galactic Council vote, a massive change occurred. Humans were reclassified to Tier 2 status. This was a dramatic jump. Tier 2 gave humans access to advanced technology, increased participation in galactic governance, and recognition as a full partner species rather than a lesser civilization. The change was not unanimous. The Vraxians continued to oppose it, and some other species remained skeptical. But the majority of the galactic community had voted in favor. More humans began to arrive at Kepler Station and other research facilities. They came to share their knowledge, to help with the research, to help train other species in the principles of human innovation. Young human scientists arrived with excitement in their eyes. For the first time in centuries, humans were being recognized for what they truly were: creative, innovative, capable beings, worthy of respect. There was a moment when Jin-Woo came to Hyun-A and apologized. They met in a small garden area that had been created on the station, a place where both humans and aliens could relax and interact. "I was wrong," Jin-Woo said simply. "I was so afraid that drawing attention would bring danger, that I did not see that drawing attention could bring opportunity. I was trying to keep humans safe by keeping them hidden. But you showed me that true safety comes from being valued and respected, not from being invisible." Hyun-A put a hand on his shoulder. "You were scared. That is understandable. But I was scared too. I just chose to move forward despite the fear." The uniform itself was moved to the Galactic Museum of Civilizational Achievement. But before it was moved, Hyun-A asked to wear it one more time. She put on the dress uniform in front of a large gathering of scientists and delegates from dozens of species. She stood in the center of a great hall, the uniform fitting snugly against her body, and she spoke about what it meant to her. "This uniform represents more than military achievement," she said. "It represents the human drive to become more than we are. It represents our understanding that potential is not just something you are born with. Potential is something you cultivate, something you work toward, something you prepare yourself to achieve. When humans put on uniforms like this, we are not trying to become someone else. We are trying to become the best version of ourselves." We are using symbols and structure and tradition to help us reach toward excellence. She paused and looked around the room at the faces of beings from 100 different species. I believe that is something that all of your species understand as well. Whether through armor, or light, or vibration, or any other method, every species has ways of preparing themselves to achieve their potential. Humans just created a particularly effective way of doing that, and I am honored to share that knowledge with all of you. A Thylosian delegate named Yonji stood and began to applaud. Her bioluminescence flared brightly, showing her genuine appreciation. Other delegates began to applaud as well. Not all of them, but many. The Vraxians sat in silence, their disapproval evident in every posture of their bodies. But they were no longer the only voices that mattered. After the ceremony, Dr. Teo approached Hyunei. His 3 eyes were bright, with satisfaction and pride. "You have changed the galaxy," he said simply. "No," Hyunei replied. "I have just shown the galaxy what it was always capable of becoming. The real change is still to come. Now we have to prove that humans, and all species, can live together as genuine equals. We have to prove that recognizing each other's potential makes us all stronger." She looked at the uniform displayed in its protective case, now about to be moved to the museum. She thought about the soldiers who had worn uniforms like this centuries ago. She thought about her ancestors who had understood the connection between appearance and ability. She thought about the future that was now opening up before humanity. "This is just the beginning," she said. "This uniform opened a door. Now we have to walk through it together." Minsu joined them, along with Jinwoo. The 4 of them stood together, human and alien, looking at the uniform that had changed everything. The relationship between their species had been fundamentally altered. Humans were no longer seen as simple and manageable. They were recognized as innovative, capable, and worthy of equal partnership in the galactic community. The future was uncertain. There would be challenges ahead. The Vraxians and others who benefited from the old power structure would resist. But for the first time in human history among the stars, humans had the chance to be recognized for what they truly were. And that made all the difference.